Hello neighbors, my name is Ruigh, and I would like to welcome you here today to celebrate Earth Day with our Homeowners Association. The first Earth Day celebrations took place in 1970 in colleges and universities, in primary schools, in secondary schools, and in communities like ours across the United States of America. Now, Earth Day is observed around the globe and is celebrated by more than 1 billion people. Our Earth Day celebration is designed to help us understand fire prevention measures we can implement at our homes to minimize our risk from wildfire. In honor of Earth Day, I would like to begin today's program by sharing an excerpt from Carl Sagan's Pale Blue Dot, A Vision of the Human Future in Space. Look again at that dot. That's here, that's home, that's us. On it, everyone you love, everyone you know, everyone you ever heard of, every human being who ever was, lived out their lives on this pale blue dot. The aggregate of our joy and suffering, thousands of confident religions, ideologies, and economic doctrines, every hunter and forager, every hero and coward, every creator and destroyer of civilizations, every king and peasant, every young couple in love, every mother and father, hopeful child, inventor and explorer, every teacher of morals, every corrupt politician, every superstar, every supreme leader, every saint and sinner in the history of our species lived there, on a mote piece of dust suspended in a sunbeam. The Earth is the only world so far to harbor life. There is nowhere else, at least in the near future, to which our species could migrate. Visit, yes, settle, not yet. Like it or not, for the moment the Earth is where we make our stand. It has been said that astronomy is a humbling and character-building experience. There is perhaps no better demonstration of the folly of human conceits than this distant image of our tiny world. To me, it underscores our responsibility to deal more kindly with one another and to preserve and to cherish the pale blue dot, the only home you've ever known. This is our second presentation in JOA's Firewise Speaker Series. First, I'd like to introduce our Firewise Committee members, my dear friends and neighbors, Gail Hammond, Al Bichot, and George Nail. We work closely with the Santa Clara Fire Safe Council and with CAL FIRE. Today's presentation will be recorded by our very own board member, David Fredericks. Our Firewise goal is to help JOA homeowners learn about fire prevention measures. Living close to nature places us and our community at risk for a fire. Today we will learn how to minimize our fuel load. You will help learn when to remove dead branches and trees, eliminate fuel ladders, and use fire-safe plans. Our first speaker is Carla Ruigh, an area manager with the Santa Clara County Fire Safe Council. The Santa Clara Fire Safe Council protects residents and homes and brings together individuals, public and private agencies, and companies sharing an interest in preventing and reducing the loss from wildfires. Please join me in welcoming Carla.
Good morning, everybody. How is everybody this morning? Good, right. It's a little chilly out there, but I think it's going to be nice later. Thank you, Gail and Linda and Al, for inviting me here today and for working on this whole Firewise community thing for Jackson Oaks. I think it's just really wonderful that you guys are moving in this direction, and it's very, very smart for you to be doing this. So, as was mentioned, I'm the South County Area Manager for the Santa Clara County Fire Safe Council. I'm going to be talking about what the Fire Safe Council does, the services we provide. Carol will be covering more of the practices of defensible space and protecting your homes. So, but the Fire Safe Council is a nonprofit, a 501c3 nonprofit. It was created, I think, about 12 to 15 years ago now by a number of people, including some professionals from the fire, retired from fire Services who really wanted to see the county do more to protect the county and be prepared for wildfire. So the organization has grown over the years, and we now have a fairly large board of directors. I think it's eight or 10 right now. They meet once a month, and they vary the location each month. You can go to our website for the meeting. It's always the second Tuesday of the month, but sometimes they'll meet down here, and sometimes they'll meet in Mountain View and South San Jose and other areas. So the meeting location will change on a monthly basis to make it accessible, because we really represent the entire and service the entire county. There's also local committees. In case of South County, we have a South County area committee that meets the first Thursday of every month. Again, that information's on our website, and that'll be on some of the brochures I leave with you. You're more than welcome to come to those meetings. We love to have participation in the meetings. It's a great way to find out what's going on, and also to make sure that South County is represented as decisions are being made about what kinds of grants we apply for and what kinds of programs we pursue and how we allocate our funding and things along those lines. So it's definitely valuable to have South County represented with the Santa Clara County Fire Safe Council. So the Fire Safe Council is primarily grant funded. We get grants and contributions from the biggest source of funding is general federal funding. It's administered by the California State Fire Safe Council, which is kind of an umbrella organization. And they issue the requests to submit grant applications and whatnot, and then they administer the grants. But most of the money comes from federal sources. We also get local contributions from the South County Fire District, provides contributions, State Farm, PG&E, a number of local agencies and nonprofits that provide grants, provide funding for us. So we have a wide variety of funding sources, but really the meat and potatoes is the federal grants that we get. We also get contributions from homeowners like you that have had services from us and want to do some payback to the community. Those opportunities are available. So what do? Fire Safe Council is really in the role of trying to help this area become more prepared for fires. And we do that through a number of different programs. One of our biggest programs, and the one that's probably going to be of greatest interest to you, is our chipping program. And that's where we provide generally free chipping services for people who have cleared defensible space around their home. You have these big piles of brush left over. It's a hassle to take them to the dump. You can't burn them. What do you do with them? And so we will come in and we will chip up that material for you for free, typically. There have been a few occasions where we've had really, really large projects where the homeowners have more than what we would normally do for a single household, in which case we ask the homeowners to generally pick up the difference between what we would cover and what the cost of the project is. Or we just do whatever amount is appropriate or allocated to a single project. So that's one of our primary programs. I'll talk about that a little bit more. We also have educational outreach programs. We have an educational coordinator, Eugenia. She goes out and she'll do talks like this, and one of the big programs she does is a Smokey Bear program, and we have a Smokey Bear costume. And we will go to schools, churches, anything like that where you have kids, YSI day camps and things like that. And we'll bring the costume. Usually we ask whoever's getting the presentation to provide a volunteer to wear the costume. I won't wear it. I'm claustrophobic. You will never, ever get me in a Smokey costume. It's just, oh my gosh, it makes me uncomfortable just thinking about getting in that. But a lot of times we have young adults, teenagers, whatever, who like to do that. And so we will provide the costume, and we'll get everybody set up and tell them what to do. Smokey never talks, so they don't have to worry about talking. And you can't see real well through Smokey, so usually we have two people and have somebody kind of walking Smokey along, make sure they don't do a head over onto the sidewalk or something like that. So if you have something like that and you'd like to have Smokey come to one of your events, you can go to our website and you can put in a request there for a Smokey the Bear presentation at your school or 4-H club or FFA or whatever, anything like that. So that's one of our big programs. We also are involved in, Carol's going to talk about this, some planning activities and creating community wildfire protection plans, and there have been several that have been done already, and there's a effort underway right now to do a countywide plan, and the Fire Safe Council is involved in that. And Carol will talk about that some more, but that's actually being driven by another organization right now, although the Fire Safe Council has actually done some of these plans in the past. So we do community wildfire prevention plans. So those are kind of the three big areas that we're involved in. We also have a lot of materials, and I've put several out here on the back for you. We have a lot of information on our website. You can go there. This brochure, which I've got hard copies for you, is basically on the website, and so you can go get this. I think this is. I only had one of these, the Homeowner's Guide to Firescape Landscaping, but I can get more for you. When I went to find all my stuff, my basket was empty, so I don't know whether I used them all up last time or maybe I gave them to somebody else who needed them, but I can get more of these for you. So we have, and a lot of this is on our website too, so you can just go there and download it. So let me talk about the chipping program. What we do for our chipping program is, again, it's grant funded. We're currently working off of what we call a WUI grant, Wildland Urban Interface Federal Grant. Those are the funds we have right now. And there was some money allocated in that to do community chipping. Oh, and I should mention my SNAP program too. And so primarily that's for chipping. We also have a special needs assistance program where we will actually go out and clear the defensible space around a home. And that is for people who are incapable of doing it themselves. They're either physically disabled, they don't have the financial resources to hire somebody, they don't have any family members who can come and help them do it, but people who are basically in a situation where, they just can't do it themselves. And if they meet the criteria, the income criteria and the other criteria, they could be eligible for our SNAP program. We don't do a lot of SNAP projects, and the reason is because they're really expensive. And so we only do typically what we've allocated in a grant for it. So if we said we're going to do 4 SNAP projects in our grant application, that's what we'll do. And there's some reasons behind that, because we have goals when we do our grants. We have goals that we have to meet. And if we do too much SNAP, we're not going to meet our goals, okay? Because we're spending so much money on a single property. So, but we do have that special needs assistance program. Okay, so the chipping program works like this. The homeowner has to clear the defensible space. It has to be a defensible space clearing. We can't chip your grapevines, for instance, but it has to be from within 100 feet around your home. And we require that the piles be what we call stacked neatly, because the chipper is going to come in, and these chippers are like the kinds you see on the side of the road that Davy Tree does. I mean, they're big trucks that tow the chipper behind them. And so we have to have access. So that's sometimes a challenge in South County. Sometimes we have places where the chipper can't get in there because they need to be able to turn around, in which case community piles, taking it all to a community location, is one of the options we have. But anyway, so we ask that it be stacked neatly along a roadway or a driveway somewhere accessible to the chipper and where they're going to be able to turn around and get out. And we do that because they want to be able to grab those butt ends of those tree branches and things and just shove them in that chipper and just, go. So be very efficient and get it done quickly. So it has to be stacked, and it has to be stacked neatly, and you can't have root balls and fence posts and wire, rocks, stuff like that. And it can't be stacked with a tractor, because if you take a tractor and you push it together, it just turns into a rat's nest, and it's very difficult for the guys to pull that apart and chip that material. So you create your defensible space, you stack all your stuff, you submit an application to us. That can be done online. You can also print it out and fax it in or email it in or even mail it in. We much prefer you to do it online if you can. And you just go in and submit the online application, and you click on it and you can fill out all the boxes. So you submit an application, and it'll get automatically forwarded to whoever's the responsible area manager. In this case, it would be me, the South County. And so we will get a copy of your application. Somebody will come out and inspect actually inspect is not right. We'll do a site visit, and we'll take a look at your piles and make sure they're accessible, make sure they can be, they're appropriately stacked. And then we usually will ask you to show us the defensible space that was created, because we have a fiduciary responsibility to make sure we're not, chipping somebody's grapevines, like I said. And, I don't think we've ever had that happen yet, but there are people out there who'll take advantage of the system. And we have to have pictures of everything, and so we'll take pictures of that, and we'll take pictures of your piles, and that all gets submitted with our grant reports that we have to complete quarterly. So that's how we typically do chipping. We also typically wait till if we get an application for an area, we will wait till we get 2 or 3 or 4 applications for an area, and then we'll bid those projects all together as a single project, and we get better rates that way from our contractors, and then they'll go out and chip all of those projects usually in a day. Now, in the case of this community, we have some options to do things a little bit differently because you have a whole community here. We can do a community chipping project. We can identify a location here in the community where all the brush could be taken and we could chip it there. We could also have you have all the piles put out on your driveways or whatever. It'll probably all happen in 1 or 2 days. So what'll happen is they're going to set up a day for chipping. We're going to decide when this is going to happen. You're going to have all your piles ready. A couple of weeks before that, we're going to come out and take a look at all those piles and take a look at the defensible space you created. Then we're going to get our contractors to bid them, and then they'll come in and chip them. In some cases, you may have people who cannot get their piles to a roadway, so they may either work with a neighbor if they can drag it up to their neighbor's driveway or road that's accessible to our chipper, or take it to a community pile location. So I don't think we have the details of how this is all going to work out for Jackson Oaks yet, but it will be something along those lines. But one of the key things is everybody needs to fill out their application. We can't have a single application for Jackson Oaks. That's a requirement of our grantor, that everybody's going to have to fill out their own application. So anyway, so I'll be working with your committee to figure out when we're going to do this and get all the details, specific details to you about how we're going to set this up for Jackson Oaks. And let's see.
Can I ask a question?
Sure,
on
go ahead.
the defensible space around your property, you said 100 feet from the structure?
Yes.
Okay, so if you had like bushes that are like 10 feet tall and one coming down to 2 feet, would that be defensible?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, if it's within 100 feet of your home.
Yeah, okay.
So, and again, Carol's going to talk about this a lot, but the keys here, one of the keys about what we're doing when we're creating defensible spaces, we're trying to make your home defensible, or you are trying to make your home defensible. When a big fire comes, and the fire people want to be safe in what they do. They see a home that's completely overgrown with brush that they can't defend, they're going to move on to the next one. They're going to go for the one that they can defend. So if you want to be at the top of the list of the home that gets protected, it would be to have that defensible space created so that those fire protection folks can actually get in there and do their job and defend your home. There's never any guarantee that your home is not going to burn down. You can have defensible space and your home can still burn down. But the thing is just to improve your odds. I mean, that's the way we look at it. Is just you want to improve your odds and make your home more defensible. And it's really not if the fire comes, it's when. I mean, it'll happen eventually. So that's just the nature of things. So so it's really about creating defensible space. It has to be 100 feet within your home. We'll be looking for things like creating separation between plant materials and separation this way. And again, Carol's going to talk about a lot of that, so I don't need to go into all of that. But go ahead. Yeah.
One of the things that you may have noticed out on Nextdoor, we've already put the application on the website and announced it on our Nextdoor. If you would, we would just to kind of
Go ahead.
We would like to gather all of those applications, and then we will take it to Carla. We attend her meeting, and we also attend the county meeting of the Fire Safe Council. So we'll bring it to her, and that's part of George Nail ran it for us a couple years ago, and in one day we did 80 houses, and that was for all the homeowners putting their stuff out.
Yeah.
And come by and just boom, 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 boom.
That's right.
So again, send them in. We'll repost it on Nextdoor. We'll put it on the website. We'd like to gather all of those so that we come to Carla and say, hey, look, we have 50 homes, we have 60 homes, we have 80, whatever the number is, and that will determine the date and everything else.
Yeah. Let me make a request, just because every one of those applications that's done by hand, we have to go in and enter into the computer manually. So what I would ask is have them fill it out online and enter it online, print out a copy of it, and bring me the copies. But have people go in and do it online. So, because otherwise we're going to be paying a staff person to go in and manually enter every single one of those into our database.
Yeah, that was our intent.
Yeah, okay, yeah, so, right.
I have a question. had indicated that there might be dead tree limbs or dead trees because of
The drought.
serious drought. Does your organization do anything to help homeowners who have immediacy for a dead tree or dead limb kind of issues?
So the only program we have is the SNAP program I talked about earlier, the Special Needs Assistance Program. So if they qualify for that, then we can come in as part of a defensible space clearing project and take those trees down if they're within 100 feet of the home. Outside of that, at this point, there is not a program for, unless you know of one, Carol, I don't know of anything for dead tree removal.
Just if the branches are small enough to fit into your chip piles.
Right, yeah. So if they take it down, if you take the tree down, if the homeowner can take the tree down or have somebody take the tree down, and then they want to trim the branches off themselves and stack them, then we can come in and we'll chip those. And that might be the most cost-effective way for somebody who's got, maybe is financially challenged. Just hire the tree guy to take the tree down and then get out there with your saw or your chainsaw and work with your neighbors. If you have a neighbor's got a chainsaw, and just chop all those branches off and stack them, and then we can go ahead and chip them, and that's probably the best way. We have looked at doing some different kinds of grant applications. I'm hoping at some point in the future we'll have a program that's sort of a cost share program where we can come out and, the homeowner puts in $1,500 and we put in $1,500 and we create defensible space around the house. So I'm hoping that at some point we'll have some programs like that, but we don't have anything like that right now. So, go ahead.
How do we establish the date?
Your homeowners association, the folks working on this, the committee will establish that date. So we're
getting pretty late in the process here.
Yeah, it's April. So we do a lot of these community projects in May and June. So it's real typical. We've got a couple of others that are going on. Lexington Hills is getting ready to do it, and we've got one in New Almaden that we'll be doing in probably in June. So you're in the right time frame.
Okay, I think we need a couple weeks of notification.
Yeah, we're going to need all those applications in by a certain date so that we can come out, so my staff can come out, the Fire Safe Council staff can come out and take a look at all of those properties, and we can get bids. So what's going to happen is there's going to be a chipping date set, and people are going to have everything done probably two weeks ahead of that in order for us to be able to get all all of the front work that we need to do and get our bids in time. So they'll set the date, and then we're going to work back from that a couple of weeks, and that's going to be the deadline for homeowners to get everything done. And I don't think you've set the date yet, have you? No. Okay.
We hope to be in May.
In May,
toward
okay.
Toward the end of May.
Okay, all right.
Carla, is there a limit? We had a huge oak tree go down in our back, South 40, I call it. Is there a limit to the number of piles that can be chipped and taken from each property?
What the Fire Safe Council has done is they've limited the expenditure of any one household to 1 day's worth of work.
Oh, okay.
So I doubt there's anybody here that's going to, a single tree, if you're just looking at the brush from the tree, is probably not going to exceed, it's not going to exceed a day. Yeah, a day's worth of work is a lot of chipping. Yeah, it's a lot of chipping. Go ahead.
How big diameter?
I think it's 8 inches.
8 inches? That's
Yeah,
pretty large
yeah,
then.
yeah. These are big chippers. Go ahead. Yeah. It's either 6 or 8 inches, but it's on the website, so I can double check on that and let you know. Other questions? Go ahead.
Question for here.
Oh,
And is there a scheduled date for the publication of the newsletter?
We haven't put a newsletter together, but I think what we ought to do is talk about doing a flyer on its own. So, yeah, and that should be very soon.
yeah. So, any other questions? Anything I've forgotten, Carol, that you can think of?
A question for our group here. All these houses, there's no space on the street to pile things for 2 weeks and let cars go by. So what's the thought process going to happen there?
How did you do it? How did you deal with that last time you did it? Just a question. No.
George, do you
I
have?
never heard of an insurmountable problem. Everything seemed to get done.
Okay.
I like your attitude.
Yeah. I think.
Maybe put them up to this top of the street, or if you can put them in a place that isn't in the traffic way.
Yeah.
For storage, because 2 weeks is a while.
And you may have to identify a community location for some of these folks where they can, somewhere in the open space that the homeowners association is responsible for that we can access, and you can have them drag the stuff there. And then just, when they fill their application, they have everything ready, we can go at their house and take a look at the defensible space that was cleared. So, yeah.
Also, working with the city, I'm trying to get Ruigh to commit. Once we commit to a date, Ruigh will come in after that and do an extra street clean.
Oh, excellent,
Because there's a lot of
excellent.
debris that's left from this.
Yeah, good, great. Go ahead.
Defensible space, are no bushes okay? Are you only talking about?
Carol will talk about that. She'll get into all the nitty-gritty of defensible space and how to do it.
Well, that sounds like a good breaking point. Thank you
Okay.
very much.
All right. Thank you.
Today's guest speaker is Carol Rice, and she's going to be talking on being better together. Carol is an East Bay native who has directed wildland resource management for over 35 years. She is a fire ecologist, and she works in the Bay Area's open spaces. She's an environmental steward charged with protecting our ecosystem and our homes. Carol is a fire management consultant with expertise in fire behavior modeling, fire ecology, fire economics, and planning. Carol holds a BS in forestry from the University of California at Berkeley. She also holds an MS in wildland fire science and management from the same academic institution. She has worked on various projects, including planning and overseeing implementation of regional fuel management plans. Carol conducts investigations and workshops on fire behavior, ecology, and economics. Carol is the past chair of the California, Nevada, Hawaii Fire Council, and she served on the board of directors of the International Association of Wildfire. Please join me in a warm welcome for Carol Rice.
Thank you. I'm going to talk on 3 different topics. The first one is, we can do fire safety on 3 different scales. One is individually. We all can control our own fire safety around our own homes. Secondly is on the community scale. The Jackson Oaks Association has a great opportunity to work together. That's the term, better together, on a community scale. And then the third one is on a larger scale, such as our countywide community wildfire protection plan, and even larger than that. So I'll first talk about homeowners, what you can do to increase your fire safety, and then touch on the larger scale, our ongoing community wildfire protection planning process. And then I'll touch a little bit about your Firewise community and what you folks can do as a homeowner association. So that's I'll be looking at 3 different kinds of ways that or scales that we can increase fire safety. Right. So there are. What am I in your way? I should.
No.
Okay.
Please join us.
So the question is what can a homeowner do to increase their fire safety? First and foremost is to work on your defensible space. And secondly, work on perhaps a buffer around your house or your open spaces for the homeowner association. What we would call that vegetation management. And the third thing is to look at different access things for opportunities for both evacuation and to increase the possibility that a fire department can come in to protect your home. So what is defensible space? The operative word is space. It is space, like Carla said, for firefighters to come in between the fire and your home to protect your home. So defensible space. And that's the space where you are removing your fuels. And you're actually creating separation between the fuels so that you're making, you don't have to get rid of all your fuels, but you are creating space in between fuels. It'll end up being possibly clumpy or in a horizontal way, or it may be separated, and you really do want to have it separated between the tree canopy and the bottom ground. So you want horizontal space between your vegetation and vertical space between your vegetation. And I'll have pictures of that following up. And then you want to have space so that you're not worried about what's behind you. So you've got, and what are we protecting against? We're protecting against heat. And there are 3 different kinds of heat that might cause your house to ignite. One is just flames, and the other one is radiant heat, and the third one is embers. So the flames are the things that catch the news attention. You know, you're going to see flames on the video of news at 10, but that's not possibly the thing that's going to do in many of the homes. It's possibly the other ones, but it's influenced mostly by topography and the fuels right around your home. So if we're going to try to make the flames be less important, you're going to remove that vegetation around the home. Because, in fact, all the building codes say that, oh, well, this one's ignition resistant, but if flames touch it, all bets are off. So you have to keep those flames away from your house. It's interesting to know what part of your house and your structures are most at risk. It's those vertical structures, because the flame's going to come in and with the wind it'll blow it forward, or the slope will cause it to preheat, and it'll touch your vertical surfaces. So that's the part of the house that you're going to be most influenced by flame impact. It's interesting too that we think of flames as lasting a really, really long time, but almost all the flames stay in any one spot less than 90 seconds. Because it burns it up, the small twigs, and moves on. So all you have to do is keep your house hardened against ignition for 90 seconds. It isn't that much. And it's mostly the little stuff that'll be the biggest improvement. So if you remove your little twigs and especially the dead material, you're actually going to be much better off in surviving that 90 seconds for flame impingement. So that's a tip at home. The next kind of heat that you're fighting against is radiant heat. And this is harder to fight against because it's probably your next door neighbor's house. And if your next door neighbor's house is on fire, it'll burn for a really long time. And that, it's going to burn for maybe a half an hour. And it will totally dry out your house and your vegetation. And pretty soon, as this example shows, that it will jump across and ignite that other house. So there isn't any vegetation in between those homes. It is just simply one house is igniting the other. So that goes back to you're better together. If you can do your part, but also do talk to your neighbor, because that will possibly burn up your house. The thing that we're really focusing on in the fire science community is embers. We're finding that a lot of the homes are burning up from embers. Back in the 80s, that really baffled firefighters, because they'd put a lot of effort into a home, make it all nice and safe, go on to the next one and come back, and the house is gone. And it was because embers had gotten into the vents of the house. Embers have gotten into the inside corners of the decks and smoldered. And after they left, it finally preheated things enough to ignite and catch that house on fire. So now we're learning about it. Think about if wherever the wind blows your leaves in the deck, that's where embers will catch too. So you have to pay special attention to, like I said, inside corners, nooks and crannies, and really horizontal surfaces, because those are where those embers will land, is in the horizontal surface. Your deck, where unfortunately your beautiful sliding glass window attaches to the deck, that is often a place where embers land. And the good news is, it's pretty easy to retrofit for the vents. You can pop out your old vent and put in one that are really fire resistant. They have some now that they not only have a screen, but they also have baffling, so that the air and thus the embers have to come through the vent and then go onto a metal trap, and then they go up and then over and then finally get to inside your attic. And they cost like $10. So that's actually a pretty easy fix. And when you consider that a lot of the homes are being burned up by ember casts, it's a pretty high priority to do. So one of the first things you can do, you have to prioritize a lot of works in your defensible space. And one of the things that we like to do is say, target your fire-loving plants. You know, in the fire science world, we use big words on it, and it's pyrophytic. And but if it's smelly and pitchy and twiggy and shaggy and you crush it and it smells really good, it's probably pyrophytic. And it usually also has a whole lot of dead material in it. There's a wonderful theory that if a plant has a lot of those characteristics that will make it burn really intensely, it will be helped in the natural environment by being burned. So, for example, eucalyptus is the poster child of being a pyrophytic plant. And when a fire goes through, it actually helps the eucalyptus recover, and it burns out all the competition, and it's going strong again. So we call that fire adapted, and those fire adapted plants are usually these first plants that you want to get rid of in your yard. And those are sometimes, I mentioned eucalyptus. The second one would be junipers. If I, walked around the neighborhood and I said, okay, first things, get rid of your junipers, get rid of your eucalyptus, and then the third thing might be really look at your pines and see whether or not you want to keep that pine tree. But junipers are especially bad because they have a lot of really fine material that is very easily ignited. The smaller the material, the easier it's ignited. It has a lot of dead material in it. And the more dead material it is, the more easily it's ignited. And it has those oils in it too. So it's a bad actor, and I'd say, get rid of those. So, unfortunately, the plant on the left is rosemary. So rosemary is sadly a pyrophyte as well. So here's some examples of the one on the upper left is not from here, but this would possibly be the worst case scenario. You've got junipers down below, which would easily ignite the pine tree up above. So you've got complete horizontal continuity, which is bad, and then you've got complete vertical continuity, which is bad too. So if the grass were to start by roadside, most fires are started, 80% of all fires are started within 10 feet of a road. So if the worst case scenario would be, it would start a fire here, and then a fire would start here, it would catch the junipers on fire, and then it'd climb right up to the top of the canopy of the pine tree, and then it would cast embers hundreds of feet away onto your roof, onto your deck, onto your dry grass. So that's what we're trying to avoid. And these two are from pictures from Google Earth or from the web from Jackson Oaks. So this homeowner has done some nice jobs of cutting the grass down below. They have a nice space from above, but they've got this band of junipers that actually would produce flames that might ignite the siding, and of course these junipers, and blow out the windows. So it looks okay, but actually the junipers are a bad actor. And then here, a homeowner has done some very nice spacing of using rocks and bare dirt in between, but the choices they have of plants that they do have is pines and junipers. So I applaud their spacing, but let's look at the kinds of plants too. And I think we're going to have we're going to look at landscaping in the future with Jackson Oaks. And there is a list of fire-resistant plants on the back side. You're welcome to back table, by all means, bring them up. Okay, so another other worry might be access. You folks have much nicer roads than these. These are more rural. You have pretty nice roads, but you still have some steep areas, and you've got some places where they're one way in, one way out, which would be limiting if you all wanted to get out all at once. And so there are some opportunities, and I would encourage you to look at different ways to augment your access. Okay. So one of the concerns you folks have is your terrain. You're on a fairly steep area. It provides a beautiful view of the reservoir, but you've got some challenges. Both the terrain provides steeper roads, or it results in steeper roads, and it also results when a fire does come, everything up above it is preheated by the fire down below. So you've got some increase in rates of spread, and you've got some increase in flammability of plants. So so that's a challenge for you. Not much you can do about it. We're not expecting you to grade anything, but just recognize that. Your structures are pretty recently, it's not an old neighborhood. So you've got homes that are not they're constructed with fairly ignition resistant practices and material. And again, these are from the web, and I didn't pick anybody out in particular. So one of the things that you might look at is the vents, underneath here. Try to make it ember resistant. Look at the decks. I know a lot of the houses have lovely decks, and that's where those horizontal surfaces would be vulnerable from the embers. So think about coatings on the decks. There are some fire retardant coatings. Let's see, by all means, if there are any wood shake roofs, it's a good time to take them out and replace them. So defensible space is about creating these gaps. So know what your fuels are. Look around in your yard and find out where are those fire-loving plants, and replace them all at once or over time, but just start working on it. Increase spaces between the plants so that those horizontal continuity, make it clumpy, or and also to prune the lower branches of your trees to reduce the ladder fuels. So here's this kind of reinforces what Bob Stevens said. And how many folks came to last time's meeting with Dr. Stevens? Great, good. He talks about the home ignition zone, which is right closest to the structure, and then the defensible, and that's like up to 10 feet. The defensible space zone may go to 30 feet, and then, and oftentimes the regulation says 100 feet. And then we talk about vegetation management beyond that, which might be your open spaces in your common areas. The law says 100 feet, but you can never go on your outside your property. It doesn't enable you to go work on your neighbor's property if it's within 100 feet. Just saying.
How far out is the other ring?
So the defensible space by regulation is 100 feet now. The outer ring, we often call it, well, there are a couple of names. It might be fuel modification zone. I like to call it a calming zone, because what you're trying to do is kind of calm the fire before it gets to the part where you really, really want to have it go out, or almost by itself. And that depends on how bad this situation is. If it's chaparral, you're probably going to need 250 feet from the house. And if it isn't so bad, then this distance gets shorter. Good question. So Bob Stevens says that it's a home ignition zone. I call it structure ignition zone. But the point is, right closest to your house, you really don't want to have much at all. And that kind of flips the traditional landscaping on its head, because we normally like to put bushes right underneath the windows, and the windows is a weakness. Windows are actually one of the things that are most apt to break during a wildfire. So if anything, you want to put your bushes away from the windows, and in between your windows and further away. As I mentioned, embers land on the horizontal spots. An ember will land right next to your house. And even if it has stucco, that there is a spot where the stucco goes down, and there's it's called a weep screen, where it's a gap between the inside the 2x4s, and embers have been known to land right at the base of the house and get in behind stucco. So another good reason why we really, if you were to prioritize anything, I'd say really work closest to the house. An adage is you work from the house out. So do your best work and most intensive work closest to your house, and you can be a little bit more messy and forgiving, further away. Right? And as, let me hammer on the junipers again. So this house would have been really fire safe. They've done a good amount of limbing, even though they have conifers in the back. They've done good limbing, they've mowed their grass, they have good separation, but they've got this big chunk of junipers that would endanger them and their neighbor. And sometimes that juniper, let me go back. That juniper is right by the road, and it might even keep a fire truck from zooming by, because if that was flaming, they're worried about their safety too. So it's not, think about not only yourself, but also the access. So in the structured ignition zone, we, usually the brochures talk about what's on the ground, but don't forget your roof. And don't forget to clean out your gutters and your needles and valleys where the material will collect. And by code, you have to have 10 feet from the chimney to the branch. But I wouldn't say to take out that entire big branch, because you really only have to worry about the small material. Anything larger than 3 inches, you can, kind of gets a pass. Because it's the small material that is most likely to ignite, not the big stuff. Yes?
What did you say distance was between the chimney and
10 feet.
10 feet.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting, that looks like a California live oak.
It is.
It's a endangered species, which you're not allowed to trim unless you have a permit to trim.
So California live oak is not endangered. It's very common, but the valley oak is quite, they're quite worried about. But still, you might still have to have a permit just because it is a native oak tree.
Okay.
And each area is different, and I believe you when you say that they need a permit. But if it's less than 3 inches, normally they don't require you to trim if it's less than 3 inches.
That's good to know.
Yeah. So after 10 feet, that's kind of where your landscaping is. That's where your yard structures are. That's where you do a lot of your recreating. So here's some examples of what would be good looking defensible space. And we would try to have large expanses of low fuel, but it doesn't necessarily have to be grass. So the one on the bottom left is very nice, but it's shrubby and it's spaces in between. So here are a couple of ways to handle shrubs, and the shrubs are the hardest thing to work with in defensible space. You could attack every single bush and thin it out so that every single bush has not a whole lot of vegetation on it, and you still have the same bush. Or you can decide, all right, I'm taking half of the bushes out. So you could do it 2 different ways to create that. You could make it small scale or on a larger scale. Yes, Linda?
If I were to thin out, is there a spatial distance between my shrubberies?
Yeah, and that's a great question. It's usually 2 times the height of the bush. So another way to do it is if you want bushes in between, shorten your bush. So you can shorten your bush or have a tall bush and a big space in between. So here's some more examples of really nice looking defensible space. And the bottom one is from Jackson Oaks. And so consider raised beds, have your urban garden, or urban farm, I think they call it. But think about different uses for it too. Another example of defensible space zone, they had some nice vineyards. They have good gaps between the trees. They've done a lot of good work. This is bare ground. This is bare ground. They've trimmed up down below their open decks, but they did allow a big pine to start to grow, and that will be a problem over time. Yes.
I have a question on the previous picture.
Sure.
There's a lot of mulch and stuff. Is that a problem, or is that a good thing?
Mulch is actually not a problem, except that I wouldn't put it right next to the house. So in fact, a lot of our drought-resistant practices are to mulch everything, which is okay, but don't put it next 5 feet from your house. Use rock instead.
Are there mulches that are better than others?
Yes, and so the baddie, and one that is pretty much banned, is gorilla hair, because it's long, fibrous. It has a lot of tiny little particles in it.
Interesting, because that's what our landscaper wants us to do. We've replaced everything with drought tolerant, and he wants us to put gorilla hair, and I'm looking at it and I'm thinking.
Well, and the reason why is because it doesn't fall down the hill.
Right.
And so in those cases where, here where you've got a fairly steep slope, it's the thing that'll stay on the slope. So that's your trade-off.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Okay, we did that. All right. So next zone, maybe think about your open spaces, your spaces between, further away from your home. What are you going to do with that? And so these are examples of what would be good to have. And some of them are on Jackson Oaks. The bottom left is from Jackson Oaks. So what you do here is you're allowed to keep more shrubs, but still the most important thing is to prune the branches up, because you're trying to have the fire not be involved in the tree canopy. And in fact, if fire was so big that it was in the tree canopy, once these are trimmed up, it'll fall down to the ground. So it'll change the fire behavior of a very big, intense fire. And that's what they do in the Forest Service. They make sure that the bottom part is free, so that they're limbing things up and it's low fuel underneath the trees. So it might be easier if you use animals, like the goats. I saw goats coming down from along 680. They were actually using it by the side of the road, which is cool. The compatible land uses, of course, are vines and orchards. There are a lot of ways that you can use your land that is fire safe, that doesn't require constant maintenance. So some tips regarding access. You really need to have what we call the box. You need to have 14 feet tall, because the fire engines are 14 feet tall. And so they need that height to get through. And a lot of times you'll go through a road, go through a road, and you'll see what I call FedEx pruning. That there is this real, very distinct line where the top of the trucks have just taken off the bushes. Well, we need that in more for fire departments. And a 20-foot road width would be really cool if you can have it. We want 2 lanes so that someone can get out at the same time a big engine can come in. And then the roads, try to work on your roadside vegetation so that it doesn't daunt the fire emergency response if it's on fire. Imagine it being on fire and having to drive by it. And imagine you having to drive out when it's on fire, and it will give you more of an impetus to cut your brush back. And the thing to do there is to remove all the shrubs under the trees. You can have shrubs, just not under the trees. Oh, there we go. And some people really want to get out. Yeah. And it actually is doable. This was landscaped. They actually put some oleanders in, which is very fire resistant, and mowed the grass, and it looks really nice still. And yet they still had their 14 feet up and then 20 feet across. So it still had a rural look about it, but it served very well. Right. So I'm going to repeat it and summarize it. Your Firewise actions are to limb up your bottom branches of your trees, open the understory, remove the shrubs under the trees, move back the brush from access points. You want to remove the shrubs under the trees, limb them up, and use whatever tools you have, such as animals. Don't forget your own structure, and maintain your roof and gutter. And in doing so, you actually will my experience has been you actually get to use your land more. Instead of it being a big brush field, you can actually see through it. You can actually travel through it. And it's actually an improvement. And for example, this is the same place that they've got. So it's a little bit, and then you highlight the things you have left. So that's the idea. Yeah. And it's not impossible. You know, these are the standard tools that we use. It's a handsaw and loppers, little chainsaw, shovel, and don't forget there's a fire extinguisher in there and a little bitty bit of water so that if you started a fire, you could put it out. And I would now add a cell phone so you can call right away. So that's the, do your trimming when it's moist and early in the day, when it's cool. And that, again, be safe. Make sure your equipment has a spark arrestor on it. And yeah, I'm sure you guys will help each other out. Pardon?
Like cemetery working next to it.
No. And I'd encourage you to, by all means, sign up for the chipping program. You know, the Santa Clara Fire Safe Council has a fabulous program, and by all means, take advantage of it. A lot of times getting rid of the stuff is harder than getting this stuff down. So you've got a great opportunity here. Here's some examples that a homeowner did over time. It's the same place. He started with junipers down below and a coast live oak up above, and he pruned the coast live oak, but the junipers were still there. And so next year, then he finally got to the junipers and re-landscaped. So don't feel like you have to do it all at once, but do it. Here's another example, more rural. This is a Girl Scout camp up in Napa. And these are examples of survivors from Napa Firewise. And one of the board members, this is his house in a fire in 2012. And so he was pretty scared. He couldn't see it, but he had defensible space. And the whole area was burned and his house was still standing. So we know it works. So there we go. So I'm going to switch gears and talk about the CWPP. Do you guys have more questions about the defensible space at the moment? Yes?
Well, I wonder, is there anybody that you can get to come out and kind of walk you around?
Go ahead.
And tell you what you need to do?
The fire department will be happy to do that.
The fire marshal too, and I
Yep.
thought.
Oh, yeah?
We've already been working with him on doing this direct.
Quite good. Yep.
Carla said she does
Yep.
that too.
Yeah.
Carla, the lady who spoke earlier.
Oh,
Her staff does that.
Yeah. So so I just discussed what you can do. We're working on a countywide community wildfire protection plan so that all of the communities can be fire safe. It's a much larger scale, and one of the nice things that you have is someone like Carla with the Fire Safe Council that can be your bridge and your conduit from the countywide through Jackson Oaks and down to the homeowner association. So it's a really good organization, and you're very lucky to have it. It turns out that fire safe councils are only in California. That if you lived back east, you wouldn't have that bridge. And it's a homegrown idea. It's a belief of grassroots that you guys empower yourself, and no one's telling you what to do. You guys decide what you want to do, and I think that's really cool. So by all means, use it. But one of the things that the county wanted is this community wildfire protection plan. It is based on a law, it's a federal law, that said they were tired of the Forest Service coming up with all these plans that helped the Forest Service and didn't help the community. And they said, wait a minute, the community needs to have something to say in this. And so that's what started all this. And it requires a way for the communities to prioritize projects and what's going to happen in their yard. There are 3 different things that have to happen. One is you have to collaborate. The forest, and it has to, the federal government, if you had any, Bureau of Land Management, Forest Service, national parks might be here, will have to collaborate with the state level. Maybe CAL FIRE, maybe state parks at Henry Coe, and they all have to collaborate with the community and the cities. So you have to know one, it's not owned by any one layer of the government. And then you have to collaborate with all the kinds of folks too, stakeholders and environmentalists and equipment operators. So there's a whole lot of talking going on between the various people. You have to come up with fuel reduction projects. It's not enough to talk. You actually have to develop projects to reduce the hazard and figure out, you guys have a vote in which one is most important. I want to mention right off that there is what's my press release I didn't take. You guys should all have a press release of a workshop in the first week of May. And one is specific to Morgan Hill. And that would be where you folks could come and say, of the projects that we have suggested, which one is the most important? And we are also going to be asking if you have any ideas for ways to reduce fuel hazards in Jackson Oaks Association. So we have a couple of suggestions that we've gotten from previous workshops. And so that would be the time to say, those are the most important. And if you have any more, to add those too. Yes?
So say if there's an invasive species like the broom, is that something that you could say, can the CWPP come through and eliminate all that broom so that it doesn't grow everywhere in broom or grasslands?
So how I would phrase that is I would say that it's a fuel reduction project in your grasslands of Jackson Oaks, and that would be a project in the CWPP. And the Community Wildfire Protection Plan, one of the great benefits is that if you have one, you might get grant funding. So there might be some money attached to be able to implement your projects. So the third requirement is to address structural ignitability, because that's the biggest value, is usually your homes. And they want to make sure that those are not being ignored, and that the federal government or the county government or the state government isn't spending all their money in the hinterlands. So it's probably obvious why we need one, because there is a fire hazard in the area. You guys have a pretty good history of wildland fire in Santa Clara County. And you've got, this is a map of fire hazard severity zones that the state has mapped all of the areas in the wildland urban interface. And the areas in red, and I think we're right about here, are the very high fire hazard severity zones. So you are mapped as very high fire hazard severity, and you also have a whole lot of fire history. So there's pretty good reason why you might expect a fire will come through here. And that your values at risk are obvious. You've got the highest priority is always life safety, both for the homeowners and firefighters. And some people also put pets in there too. And then your structures, and then your infrastructure, your roads. Highway 17 is incredibly vulnerable. Your main road in and out of Jackson Oaks, it would be a road that I would really put high on the priority. And then your natural resources. So lots of things to protect. So the CWPP includes all sorts of different stakeholders. They have a really big stakeholder group. And so they've already gotten a lot of input. That includes county parks, it includes Mid-Peninsula Regional Open Space, state parks, PG&E, water departments, fire departments. They've got a good group of people working on this. And they are looking and organizing their efforts in 4 different kinds of environment: the natural, the built, the emergency response, and then the socio-political. We'll go over this real quick because I know it's time. So your natural environment is the thing that will cause your fire behavior. It's your steep slopes, it's your strong winds over Anderson Reservoir, it's the heavy amount of fuel that might be a problem, but it's also the things that are protected. It's also maybe your red-legged frog or your marbled murrelet a little bit further on the coast. But you've got things to protect in the natural environment too. So it's not just the hazard, but it's the thing that you love and appreciate. The built environment, you've got the homes here, and that's probably the thing that's most important to you, is you're trying to protect your own homes. And the emergency response environment, we're trying to make sure that the fire departments can do their job and can be effective in their response. So some of the projects may be, some other places are asking for water increases. Some other places are asking for access. This is to address this type of environment. But the fire departments may say, well, we want more training. Okay, all right, that could be put a project in the CWPP. So it encompasses not only the built and natural environment, but also the ability for the fire departments to be better. And then last is a social political environment. And we have a hard time describing that, but it's the codes. If you said, well, by golly, we should have wood shake roof should be banned. Well, that would be where you put it in, is in your codes. It would be, if by golly, the organization of the Fire Safety Council should be funded entirely, well, this would be where you put it in, because that's a socio-political aspect that can increase your fire safety. One more. Come on. I did go back. So this is just some of the people and entities that are involved. And I would say that Jackson Oaks Association can go right here and come to the workshop the first week of May and make your voices heard regarding what projects should be done and how important that is. Because there are other organizations that I know are going to be coming to these saying their projects are the most important. So you want to compete in a nice way.
Carol?
Yes.
Linda and I both attended the earlier workshop, and
You
we
did.
are planning to be there representing the association on the 3rd of May.
Perfect. Good. And we have captured your projects that you have suggested, and you should recognize them. And if they aren't exactly the way you intended them to be, please do correct them on that time. Yeah. So just in essence, in summary, we are going to engage the interested parties. We're in the process of doing so. We have done an assessment of where the high hazards are, and you'll see that on the workshop too. They've done a risk assessment countywide, and so that's going to be revealed on the workshop. And then finally, we're developing ways to take action, because that's really what this is for. All right. So we're, like I said, we're analyzing it. We're describing how the fire department can respond. There's a description of, well, they've got these stations and this many trucks and this many staffing. We document who was involved and the processes we use, because they want to make sure that people were engaged. And so, as I mentioned, the best thing is perhaps a shared vision, that everybody will agree on what's going to be done and what's important. But the next best thing is possible funding, so that you might be able to get funding from the federal government. And it's used as a filter. If you don't have a CWPP, you're not even looked at. So that's a good reason why a lot of people are doing it. But even if you didn't get $1, you still have better relationships between the stakeholders and the partners. So that's a good thing too. As I mentioned, come to the meetings. Not only did we want to specifically get projects, but we mined you guys and pulled that information about local, because the consulting team that's with it is from Colorado, so that they're in, and we have lots of local knowledge we want to make sure is related there. And part of the involvement is there's a survey that the county wanted, and they wanted to know what your impression was of fire safety. So you all have one, and if you would like to fill it out and leave it here, that would be awesome. If it's also online, in the press release, there's a web link, and that you can go online and take that survey online too. So I thank you, and I'd be happy to answer more questions too. So we can open up the windows and.
I think our pizza's here.
Good, perfect timing.
So,
All right.
does anyone have any questions for Carol? Well, thank you very much, Carol.